Do a crunch right now. 1 rep. Done? That rep did almost nothing, and I already know why. 95% of people train abs the same broken way they learned in PE class and have never once questioned it. 5 specific errors are killing your results, and error 4 is the reason your abs are invisible. Stay for it. Your abs are not doing most of your crunches. Your hip flexors are. That's not a theory. That's anatomy working exactly as designed, and it's been working against you every single session. Here's the mechanism. When your feet are anchored and you perform a full sit-up, your hip flexors increasingly take over as you curl your torso toward upright. In a standard crunch, where the range of motion is much shorter, hip flexors play a smaller role, but anchoring your feet and losing control of the movement still allows them to creep in and reduce the ab-specific stimulus. They're the stronger puller. They want the load, and they take it. Your rectus abdominis, the muscle you're actually trying to train, has already done its job in the first short arc of movement. Everything after that, all those extra inches of curling up, that's your hip flexors grinding through their range. You've been training them to exhaustion and calling it AB work. Think about that for a second. Months of sets, hundreds of reps, and the muscle you were targeting was barely involved for most of them. The fix is simple. Unanchor your feet. Keep the range of motion short and deliberate. You're not trying to sit all the way up. You're trying to find the first 30 degrees and own them completely. Do that once and notice where the burn actually lives. It moves. It shifts from the front of your hips into the center of your stomach, and that's the signal that your abs are finally doing the work. Here's the emotional sting on that one. You didn't have weak abs. You had strong hip flexors doing their job. Your body was never broken, your setup was. That's error 1. But error 2 is quieter, and it's costing you even more. Most people brace their abs by sucking their stomach in, pulling the belly button toward the spine. It feels like engagement. It feels like you're doing something right. It is the wrong muscle. The transverse abdominis is the deep corset layer of your core. It's the muscle that actually stabilizes your spine and creates the flat, tight look people are chasing. And it does not activate when you suck in. It activates when you brace outward, like you're about to absorb a punch. That outward pressure, that hardening of the entire midsection, that's intra-abdominal pressure, and it's what makes your deep core fire. Sucking in is the opposite of training your core. Every rep you've done with a hollowed stomach is a rep where the deepest layer never engaged. The fix: before every single rep, brace out. Create that pressure. Hold it through the entire set. You'll feel the difference immediately. The whole midsection goes rigid in a way it never did when you were just pulling your belly button in. 2 errors down. Error 3 is the one that quietly steals every set without you ever realizing it. Muscles don't count reps. They count time under tension, and most people's ab reps take less than 1 second each. At that speed, momentum is doing the work. Your core barely loads before the rep is already over. Slow it down. 2 to 3 seconds on the way up. 1 full second, pause at the top. Actually squeeze. Don't just arrive there. 2 to 3 seconds on the way back down. 1 rep should take 5 to 7 seconds total. 10 reps done that way will produce more development than 50 fast ones, because the muscle is actually under load for the entire duration instead of just hitching a ride on momentum. 3 errors fixed. Your setup is cleaner, your deep core is finally firing, and your reps are actually loading the muscle. But here's what none of this matters if you don't fix the next one. This is the reason your abs are invisible, no matter how hard you train them, and it has nothing to do with your workout. Quick question. When you brace for AB work, are you sucking your stomach in or pushing out like you're about to take a hit? Drop your answer in the comments below. Now, let's get into error 4, because this one lives completely outside the gym. Error 4, the reason your abs don't show. Everything you've fixed so far, the range, the brace, the tempo, none of it matters if this one stays broken. Because this error doesn't live in your technique. It doesn't live in your workout at all. Your abs are already there. They exist, they're developed, they're sitting underneath a layer of subcutaneous fat, and no amount of ab training removes that layer. That's not a motivation speech. That's physiology. At above roughly 10 to 15% body fat for men and around 16 to 20% for women, a layer of fat sits directly over the rectus abdominis regardless of how developed it is underneath. Though genetics, fat distribution, and muscle thickness all affect exactly where your personal threshold falls. You could have a thick, strong, well-trained core and never see a single line of it. The training is real. The muscle is real. It's just covered. And here's the part that should sting. Training abs harder does not burn the fat above them. Spot reduction is not a real mechanism. Your body does not pull fuel from the tissue closest to the muscle working. It pulls from wherever it pulls from, systemically, based on total energy balance, hormones, and genetics. Doing another 100 reps does not change that equation. I can already hear the alternative you're reaching for. More cardio, more sessions, more intensity. That's the wrong lever. The levers that actually move abdominal fat are total energy balance, sleep quality, and what researchers call NEAT, the low-intensity movement you accumulate across the entire day. Walking, standing, taking the stairs, not sitting for 6 consecutive hours. That background movement burns more total calories across a week than most single workouts do. And sleep, cortisol, the stress hormone your body floods into your system when you're under-recovered, drives abdominal fat storage specifically. Not general fat, abdominal fat. You can train perfectly and sleep poorly and wonder why nothing changes. Now you know why. You don't have a weak core. You have a covered one. Stop training harder and start eating and sleeping smarter. Those are the dials. Error 5. The last one. And this is the one that ties everything together. Most people train abs every single day because they've heard abs are different. They recover faster. They don't need rest. They're built for endurance. That's partially true of the slow-twitch endurance fibers in your core, but the rectus abdominis and the transverse abdominis are skeletal muscle. They respond to progressive overload. They require roughly 48 hours of recovery to adapt, repair, and grow, exactly like your chest, your back, your legs. Training them daily with high rep sets keeps them in a permanent state of low-grade fatigue. They never fully recover. They never get stronger. They never develop the density that creates visible definition, even when body fat comes down. The fix is straightforward. Train abs 2 to 3 times per week. Treat them like a muscle group, not a daily habit. Apply progressive overload, add resistance, slow the tempo down to those 5 to 7 seconds you already know. Increase the range of motion. Then let them recover. Now go back to that crunch you did at the very start of this video. Your feet were probably anchored. You sucked your stomach in. The rep took less than a second. Your hip flexors did most of it. Your deep core never fired, and you probably did 100 of those yesterday and planned to do 100 more tomorrow. Now you know exactly why nothing changed. 5 errors. Here's the full sequence. Unanchor and shorten the range. Brace out, not in. 5 to 7 seconds per rep. Address body fat through energy balance and sleep, not more AB sets. And train abs 2 to 3 times per week with real recovery between sessions. 5 errors. Most people will keep making every single one of them. You don't have to. Subscribe. The next video breaks down the exact diet and sleep fixes that make ab ease visible. And send this to someone still doing daily crunches.